found out on a Tuesday. There were emails, photos, a video, all tucked neatly into a folder labeled Archives on our shared iPad. Graham had been using it that morning to read the paper, said the battery was dead. I plugged it in before lunch and saw the folder in the recent files. I opened it without thinking. I wish I could say I hesitated. I didn't. My name is Elaine Booker. I'm 60. Until last Tuesday, I was a wife, a mother, and a woman who thought betrayal only happened to people with loud marriages and shallow values. Ours wasn't perfect, but it was quiet, steady. Now, I know better. The first image was of them in the kitchen. Our kitchen. Ivy was behind him, arms around his waist. His hand was on hers. Both were smiling. The second was in Asheville, downtown, outside the bookstore. He was kissing her. On the mouth. They looked happy. I didn't throw the iPad, didn't cry. I closed the file, unplugged the charger, and made myself tea. Chamomile. 1 spoon of honey. Same as always. I didn't say anything to Graham when he came back in to ask if I needed anything from the store. I just said no. He kissed me on the forehead before he left. I let him. Let me explain the setup. We run a small bookstore together, Booker and Bell. Graham handles rare acquisitions. I handle the people. Our daughter Ivy used to help on weekends. She moved back last year, said she needed time to get back on her feet after a breakup in Chicago. She moved into the guest house in the backyard, said it was temporary. That was 15 months ago. I raised Ivy since she was 5. Her mother died in a car crash. Graham and I met the year after. She used to call me Mom. Then it changed back to Elaine. No explanation. Just a cooler tone and fewer hugs. At first, I thought it was the stress. Job loss, heartbreak, whatever 28-year-olds call trauma these days. Then I noticed things. She laughed at his jokes, touched his arm when she spoke, drank from his mug. At night, I'd find the fridge rearranged, food missing. He'd say he didn't know where it went. I'd say nothing. They'd spend hours going over shop numbers. I'd find them in the office, heads together over a laptop, whispering. Once, Ivy used my scarf, the blue one Graham gave me for our anniversary. I saw her wearing it at breakfast. She said, "Oh, I thought it was mine." Last month, Graham forgot our anniversary. 38 years, no card, no dinner, not even a happy anniversary. When I reminded him the next day, he blinked like I was joking, then said, "You're not really into that kind of thing, are you?" He knows I keep every card he's ever given me. 2 weeks ago, a neighbor called Ivy Graham's wife during a community book fair. Ivy laughed. Graham didn't correct her. I said nothing. I'd been noticing things since last summer. Ivy stayed out late. Graham started locking his phone. They both became more careful around me, less warm, less noisy, like a scene being rehearsed. I started keeping a notebook. Nothing dramatic, just dates, times, where they were, what was missing. I took screenshots, backed up files, changed the passwords on our cloud. I wasn't suspicious. I was collecting. 3 days before I found the folder, Graham brought up moving. "You ever think we should downsize?" he said. "Maybe sell the house, something smaller, easier." We planted a Japanese maple in the backyard when Ivy turned 18. The roots run under the garden path. I told him no. He smiled like I'd proven his point. The night I found the folder, Ivy came into the main house without knocking. She took a bottle of wine from the cabinet, opened it without asking, and poured 2 glasses. She handed one to Graham. Not me. They sat on the couch and laughed about a video on her phone. I watched them from the hallway. They didn't look up. When I went to bed that night, Graham was already asleep, or pretending to be. I lay beside him and stared at the ceiling. My hand brushed his. He didn't move. I thought about the emails. One of them said, "She's so passive. She'll go quietly, she always does." Another said, "I feel more like myself with you than I ever did with her." And this one, from Ivy, "Do you think she suspects?" He replied, "She's too old for suspicion. It's like she's already fading." I woke early the next morning, made coffee, fed the cat, put his cup on the table. Then I sat down and wrote 3 notes. Dinner. Friday. Just the 3 of us. Password. Foundations. 21. To be opened only if I disappear. I slipped the 3rd one into the bank safety deposit box. I sent the first to their phones. That evening, Ivy asked what the dinner was for. "Just wanted a quiet night in," I said. "It's been a while." She smiled like I'd said something harmless. Graham looked up from his book and nodded. Neither of them asked why I suddenly wanted to cook. Neither of them asked what I knew. But Ivy hesitated. Just for a second. I saw it in her eyes. A flicker. The guest house lights stayed on past midnight. I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair by the front window, watching the wind in the maple tree. The branches moved like slow fingers, clawing toward the sky. The tea went cold in my hands. The lights in the guest house finally went dark at 2:12 a.m. 2 more days. Then dinner. Then answers. Friday evening. I set the table for 3. Same white plates we used every Sunday for the last 30 years. Ivy sat on the right. Graham at the head. I always took the left side, nearest the kitchen. Habit makes a life feel whole, even when it's already been hollowed out. The pot roast was in the oven. Red potatoes, carrots. The same meal I made the night Ivy came back home. Back then, she said it tasted like comfort. Tonight, I seasoned it differently. Not the food, my silence. Graham came in first, loosening his collar like he'd done something hard all day. The bookstore was closed. Ivy followed, fresh mascara, and too much perfume. She never wore it for me. Something special? She asked, gesturing at the table. I smiled. Thought we could sit down, just the three of us. She looked at Graham, then back at me. Okay. Dinner started with small talk. Inventory issues. A customer complaint. A shipment that arrived half-labeled. No one mentioned the new framed photo on the far wall. I'd added it that morning. It was a printout of one of the pictures from the folder. Ivy's hand in Graham's, blurred slightly from motion. I'd framed it in gold, just like our wedding photo. Neither of them commented on it. They just looked through it. Graham talked about the market. Ivy mentioned a book she was reading. Psychological fiction, full of betrayal and twist endings. Fitting. I nodded at all the right times. Passed the wine. Served the meat. Then I said, I found the folder. The silence wasn't loud. It was surgical. Graham blinked once. Ivy set down her fork too carefully. What folder? Ivy asked. The one on the iPad, I said. Archives. She glanced at Graham. His jaw tightened. There's nothing, she started. There's photos, I said. Emails, a video. One from the guest house. The red robe you borrowed from me. The one you said was too old-fashioned. No one moved. I didn't mean... Ivy began again. I don't need you to mean anything, I said. Graham set his wine down, wiped his mouth. We were going to tell you, he said. We didn't want to hurt you. I looked at him. He looked away. Ivy, I said, turning to her. Do you love him? She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, yes. I nodded. You understand this doesn't make sense, I said. You're 28. He's your father. Stepfather, she said quickly. I raised an eyebrow. Still, I said. She didn't argue. Graham cleared his throat. Elaine, he said, I know this is difficult, but we haven't been happy for a long time. You haven't, I corrected. You speak for yourself. I didn't mean it like that, he said. Yes, you did. I folded my napkin and placed it on the plate. Ivy's voice sharpened. You always act like the victim, I turned to her. You always act like the daughter. The edge in her expression flickered. For just a moment. Then she laughed. It was high, brittle. This is ridiculous, she said. We're not doing a courtroom drama. I didn't smile. I just stood. You've been sleeping with my husband for 2 years, I said. And you've been planning a future without me. You forged documents, power of attorney, bank access, even talked to the title attorney about transferring the house. I know all of it. Graham stiffened. Ivy froze. I walked to the sideboard, pulled open the drawer, and placed a thin folder on the table. Inside were copies, printed texts, email headers, a notarized log from the bank with her signature on my behalf. I'm not here to fight, I said. I just wanted to look you in the face and give you the decency you never gave me. They didn't speak, just stared at the paper like it might bite. I walked to the doorway. Graham called after me. Elaine, wait. I stopped. Not for him, for the moment. I'm not angry, I said. Not anymore. Ivy crossed her arms. Then what is this? A performance? No, I said. It's a conclusion. She scoffed. You should be grateful. We were going to make this easier. Graham added. You can keep the store. We're not trying to take everything. I know, I said. Then what do you want? Ivy snapped. I turned to her, voice steady. Nothing, I said. I just wanted you to know I saw you. The next morning, I was gone. I left early, didn't pack much. Just the clothes I needed, the USB drive, my notebooks, and one photo. Me and Ivy when she was 10. Back when she still held my hand without hesitation. I drove 4 hours west. Checked into a cabin I used to rent before chemo. It's small, remote, quiet, just like I needed. Graham called 3 times that first day. I didn't answer. Ivy texted once. We can still make this easy. Don't turn it into something ugly. I didn't reply. By evening, the text changed tone. You're being unreasonable. We thought you'd handle this like an adult. Don't do anything stupid. I sat on the porch, drinking tea from a chipped mug, and watched the sun disappear behind the trees. In my lap was a single sheet of paper. The witness statement my attorney had me review. It was just the beginning. The next day, my lawyer filed for divorce. He also filed for financial fraud, civil conspiracy, and spousal asset manipulation. A restraining order followed. I had recordings, audio and video, from the guest house. The camera was never hidden. Ivy just never thought I'd install one. People assume silence means stupidity. They forget that silence hears everything. 3 days later, Ivy posted a photo from the bookstore's back room. Caption said, New chapter begins with truth. In the background, Graham was blurry, unshaven, his eyes downcast. It got 4 likes. 2 were bots. The podcast email came the next day. They'd heard about my case from a legal blog. Wanted to interview me? I said no. I wasn't ready. Not yet. But I would be. It took them 3 days to realize I wasn't coming back. 5 to understand I wasn't staying quiet. On the 7th, my lawyer received an email from theirs, something polite and panicked masked as looking for amicable resolution. I didn't reply. Because everything was already in motion. Let me be clear. I never intended to ruin anyone. But people forget something about women like me. We were built to notice the small things. It started 9 months earlier. Ivy had started treating the guest house like a hotel, coming and going without notice, inviting people over, keeping the windows covered. One night, I heard her screaming at someone on the phone. "You said it would be easy," she'd shouted. "She's old, she's slow, she won't fight you." Graham didn't mention it the next day. Neither did I. But I bought a camera. It wasn't hidden. It sat on a high shelf in the corner of the guest house, shaped like a Wi-Fi extender. Ivy didn't ask. Graham never noticed. I synced it to my laptop, password protected, audio, motion triggered, time-stamped. The footage told its own story. In the first week alone, I caught them kissing in the hallway, sharing wine in the bath, whispering about how checked out I'd become. Ivy, she can't even remember what day it is half the time. Graham, and she's fading. It's not her fault. I watched myself fade in real time through their words. It was strange, like reading your own obituary written by people who hadn't buried you yet. But the recordings weren't the only thing I had. I'd noticed inconsistencies in the bookstore's finances, receipts missing, vendor payments rerouted. I pulled the records. Our joint account had been drained slowly, small transfers that looked like routine business costs. But they led to an LLC I didn't recognize. The LLC was called Maple Junction Holdings, registered 3 months after Ivy moved back in. Graham was listed as managing partner. Ivy was the secondary signer. I was nowhere. I called Brandon, not a friend, but a favor owed. He's a forensic accountant. Helped me once during the cancer settlement. Brandon pulled the LLC documents, traced the bank activity, flagged the loan application tied to our house. "That's your signature?" he asked. "No," I said. They forged it. I scanned the pages again. It wasn't a bad imitation, but I never used my middle initial, and the Y in Booker was wrong. Graham had signed loan documents against our house, using Ivy as a co-applicant to fund a renovation project for a private creative retreat. My house, my name, my money. I didn't go to the police. Not yet. First, I needed leverage. So I started building the file. I backed up every recording, every bank statement, every message. I saved Ivy's Instagram captions. I copied the calendar invites Graham sent her with hotel addresses embedded in them. One folder I labeled Winter. Another I called Wreckage. I created a third titled For Her. Inside it, I placed audio clips where Ivy spoke about me. The worst one? I used to love her like a mother. Now she's just a wall we have to get past. I printed it all. Brandon and I put together a timeline. Dates, movements, transactions, audio transcripts. He reviewed it twice. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You're not just getting divorced. You're dismantling a conspiracy." My attorney, June Ritter, filed the fraud claim first. Then a motion to freeze all joint assets. Then a notification to the IRS about suspicious activity under Maple Junction Holdings. By the time Graham and Ivy realized what was happening, the bookstore's business account was locked, the guest house utilities were cut, and Ivy's car, still registered in my name, was repossessed. She sent me a voicemail that night. "You think this makes you strong?" she snapped. "You think you're clever? You just look bitter. You're proving everything we said about you." I didn't respond. I filed it under For Her. 2 days later, Ivy showed up at the cabin. I heard the tires on gravel. I didn't open the door. She stood outside for 5 minutes. Then she shouted, "You raised me!" I almost opened it then. Almost. But then she added, "You're embarrassing yourself." And just like that, I sat back down. The next morning, the bookstore's distributor received an anonymous tip. Maple Junction was operating under fraud. They pulled the entire month's shipment. Graham sent a message through his lawyer asking for a meeting. I declined. June said, "They'll escalate." I said, "Let them." 3 more recordings surfaced in the days that followed. One was of Ivy telling a friend on speaker, "She's acting all clever now, but she's never understood business." That place was Dad's brainchild. Another showed Graham admitting they'd used my cancer recovery as a cover period to access financial records. The third was brief, just Ivy sitting on the edge of her bed, laughing. "She doesn't even know what she's done yet." I did. I knew exactly what I'd done, and what I hadn't, yet. The bookstore's website still had my bio listed. Graham hadn't taken it down, so I updated it. Just the closing line, from "Elaine believes every story deserves a second chapter," to "Elaine believes some stories should end with the truth." The page got 11,000 hits in a week. Someone on Reddit screenshotted it. It spread. A small podcast emailed again. This time, I said yes. I didn't give names. I didn't need to. I just told the story. Woman, husband, daughter, betrayal, recording, paper trail, silence, justice. The title of the episode? She didn't scream. She just documented everything. It hit 40,000 downloads in 2 days. Ivy posted a picture after that, a black square. Caption, "Some things are private. Let them stay that way." She turned off comments. By week's end, June filed an amended claim. Emotional abuse layered with financial exploitation. We had the texts, the footage, and the signatures. She said it would take time, that these cases were tricky, but we had one thing they didn't: proof. Back at the cabin, I sat by the fire and opened the old photo again. Me and Ivy, 10 years old. Her face pressed into my shoulder. She'd just lost her first tooth. I'd told her the tooth fairy always leaves more if you leave a note. I still had that note. It read, "Thank you for making me feel safe again." That's what this was about now. Not revenge, not destruction, just safety. And remembering I never stopped noticing. Graham filed a response to the divorce petition on a Thursday, requested mediation, claimed emotional pressure, misunderstanding, no malicious intent. That same afternoon, the electric company called to verify a change of billing address. He and Ivy had tried to move the bookstore's utilities to Maple Junction Holdings. I confirmed their request. Then I canceled it. Then I filed a lien against the company license. June and I met every Monday at 9 a.m. She brought the strategy. I brought the facts. She called me the calmest client I've ever seen. I told her I'd already spent 6 months crying before I ever picked up the phone. She smiled and said, "Good. Let's make them regret thinking that meant you were weak." First, we locked the bookstore. I had proof that I was the sole leaseholder. Technically, Graham was an employee. I changed the locks. He showed up the next morning with Ivy, saw the notice taped to the door, and called my phone 12 times before noon. I didn't answer. I sent a group text instead. "Business closed until further notice. Contact legal for updates. E." Second, we froze the Maple Junction account. Brandon, my forensic accountant, flagged multiple transfers that coincided with personal expenses. Ivy's spa weekends, a rental in Charleston, a luxury watch Graham wore in every bookstore photo for the past year. We traced $86,000 in fraudulent transactions. It was more than theft, it was embezzlement, and I had receipts. Third, I filed a civil claim for coercive financial manipulation during medical recovery. The cancer wasn't just a shadow, it was a timeline. And they'd left tracks all over it, emails, signatures, payments signed for Elaine with shaky forgery. They'd used my illness as cover. Now it was going to bury them. The guest house was still technically on my property. I filed for formal eviction, 72-hour notice, delivered via courier. Ivy posted a photo of the notice on Instagram. Caption, "When your mother throws you out, but you stay centered." Comments were off. I found a buyer for the house the next week. Full offer, cash. Retired couple from Tennessee. June handled the title transfer. The house was in my name only. Always had been. When Graham found out, he left me a voicemail. "You're destroying everything." I saved it under final warnings. By then, the podcast episode had hit 100,000 downloads. A local journalist requested a written feature. I declined. But I offered one sentence she could use. "People think silence is surrender." "It's not. It's strategy." She printed it at the top of the article. Ivy's coworker at the wellness studio shared it to their internal staff board. A week later, Ivy was asked to step away from her mentorship role until further notice. Meanwhile, Graham requested one last meeting. Said he wanted to apologize in person. June advised against it. I agreed, then scheduled it anyway. We met at the bookstore. It was 5 p.m. Closed hours. I arrived early, turned off the security cameras, brought a recorder instead. Graham walked in wearing the same leather coat I bought him for his 50th. He didn't look like a man in control anymore. He looked like a man holding his breath. "Elaine," he said. I nodded toward the chair across from me. He sat. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," he said. "You never do," I replied. He rubbed his face. "She was unexpected. So was the betrayal." He looked up sharply. "It wasn't about hurting you. It never is." He shook his head. "Ivy's not who you think she is." I raised an eyebrow. "She manipulated both of us." I didn't respond. "Maybe we both got caught in something," he said. I hit the stop button on the recorder. "That's enough," I said. "I just wanted to hear what version of the story you'd tell." He looked at the recorder. His face crumpled. "You were recording me. I've been recording you for months." I left him sitting there. Didn't say goodbye. The next step was simple. I filed formal notice that the bookstore's name, branding, and customer list were under my ownership. I owned the IP, the POS, the registry. I closed it permanently. A week later, I registered a new LLC for her books, a quiet store, online only. First order shipped on a Wednesday. It included a handwritten note. Every woman should keep records, just in case. Ivy's eviction was finalized on a rainy Friday. She posted nothing. Graham moved in with his brother in Charlotte. They haven't been seen together since. The house sold a week later. I left the maple tree. Told the buyers it had been a gift. I didn't explain from whom. When the check cleared, I transferred half of it to a trust under my name. The other half went into an account Ivy didn't know existed. It had one beneficiary, not her. Brandon called that afternoon. "You've got them cornered," he said. "What now?" I looked out the window of the cabin. The leaves were falling. I wait. For what? For the panic. I didn't have to chase the fallout. It came to me. It started with Ivy's meltdown at a brunch in West Asheville. The restaurant was full. Sunday crowd, jazz duo playing on the patio, mimosas in every hand. Ivy was seated with two women from her yoga studio, the kind that talk louder when they want to be overheard. One of them brought up the podcast. Said the story sounded familiar. The other laughed and said, "That mother-daughter thing? Wild. Wonder who it was." Ivy stood, threw her drink into a potted plant, and left without paying. Someone posted the whole thing on TikTok. Caption, "When your secrets are on Spotify and brunch goes wrong." 1.4 million views in 2 days. Graham lost 2 major vendors that same week. One pulled out after hearing about the fraud claim tied to the bookstore. The other, after a background check revealed Maple Junction's LLC status was now under legal dispute. He sent me an email that read, "You've made your point. You can stop now." I didn't reply. Ivy's car, still technically mine, was picked up by a repo agent the following Tuesday. She posted a photo on Instagram of the empty driveway with a middle finger emoji as the caption. I saved it in a folder titled Maturity. Then came the knock at the cabin door. It was Harold, from the bookstore's old supplier network. He'd always liked me. Said my tea service was the reason he stayed 20 minutes longer on every visit. He held out an envelope. Inside were letters. Not from Graham, not Ivy, from customers. 11 of them, some handwritten, some typed. Each said the same thing. "Thank you for the way you handled everything. We see you." 2 days later, I received a call from my lawyer. "Graham wants to settle," June said. I let the silence stretch. "He's offering a 70-30 split," she continued. "You keep the bookstore brand and full proceeds from the house sale. He'll take responsibility for Maple Junction's debt." "And Ivy?" I asked. "She's out. No legal ground to stand on, and this is off the record. Her lawyer dropped her." "Why?" "She tried to drag you into a slander suit against the podcast host. Claimed defamation. The lawyer reviewed the tapes, said he wouldn't risk court." I nodded to myself. "Send him the counteroffer." That night, I walked the cabin's property line. No lights, just the wind, just me, and the space where I used to doubt myself. It was gone now. The next morning, a florist delivered flowers, white roses, no card. I guess would have been easy. Graham liked apologies to be pretty. I didn't keep them. 3 nights later, my phone buzzed at 2:04 a.m. Unknown number. 1 voicemail. I listened once. It was Ivy. Her voice was raw. "Are you proud of this?" she said. "Of humiliating me? Of turning everyone against us? You were supposed to be the adult. You were supposed to love me." Pause. "I hate you. But worse, I think I still wanted you to forgive me." She hung up. I saved it. Didn't label it. Didn't need to. 2 days later, I got a call from Travis Bell. He's a small publisher in Raleigh. Said he'd listened to the podcast. Said he wanted to talk. I said no. He asked again. I said, "I don't want to write revenge." He said, "Then write reflection." Later that week, Ivy was spotted crying outside her old wellness studio. She wasn't allowed in. There was a new director now. 26, clear policies, no nepotism. Graham tried to contact me through Brandon. Brandon sent a screenshot. "Tell her I made a mistake. Tell her I miss what we had." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Tell him I kept the receipt for the leather coat. He can return the memories himself." The panic had found them now. I didn't have to lift a hand. That Sunday, I returned to town for the first time. Not to see them. To visit the tree. The Japanese maple we planted the year Ivy turned 18. It was taller now. Tougher. Like me. I stood under it with a takeaway coffee and read the note I'd left in the safety deposit box months ago. It said, "If you're reading this, that means I didn't fold." Good. I placed it back and closed the box. As I left the bank, I saw them, across the street, together, but distant. Ivy was on her phone. Graham looked older. Neither of them looked at me. I didn't stop, didn't wave, didn't feel anything. I just walked on. The court date was set for the following Wednesday. No jury, just the judge, the lawyers, the paperwork, and the people who made this mess. I wore navy. Clean, simple, no makeup. I didn't want to be dramatic. Graham showed up in a suit I hadn't seen before. Ivy was in a cream blouse with pearl earrings. I'd bought those pearls for her graduation. She didn't wear them then. Funny what people save for war. The judge opened with pleasantries, legal language, schedule confirmation. Then he asked, "Do we have all exhibits ready?" June stood, opened the folder, and said, "Yes, Your Honor. The full file has been submitted. Financial records, video transcripts, medical affidavits, and audio recordings as previously approved." Graham shifted. Ivy didn't blink. The first clip was audio. Graham, from the guest house camera. "She won't fight. She never does. It's like living with a ghost." The second was Ivy. "It's not stealing if she doesn't even notice." The third from the phone recordings. "Just get her to sign it while she's loopy from the meds." The room stayed silent. Even the judge. Then he cleared his throat and said, "Let's proceed." By noon, the facts were sealed. The financial transfers totaled $143,000. The forgery on the refinancing application was confirmed. The LLC created under Maple Junction was declared fraudulent. And Ivy, legally unrelated in business or property, was declared an outside actor with undue influence. The restraining order was renewed for another year. The house, the bookstore brand, and 80% of the remaining joint assets were awarded to me. They didn't look at me once, but I looked at them, not with triumph, with clarity. Outside the courthouse, June patted my arm. "Justice with receipts," she said. "Only kind that lasts," I replied. That night, I slept for 7 hours. No dreams, just quiet. The podcast host followed up again. This time, he had a publisher attached. They wanted a full narrative. I told him I wasn't interested in revenge stories. He said, "Then let's tell the one about recovery." 3 weeks later, I signed the contract under a pseudonym. The book is called Records for Rainy Days. It opens with a quote, "I wasn't quiet because I was weak. I was quiet because I was watching." The royalties started coming in after the 3rd month. I used the first payment to buy a small townhouse in Blowing Rock. Nothing fancy. Just windows that catch the sunrise and a porch that overlooks the woods. No guest house, no shared passwords, just peace. One afternoon, I was sitting on the porch when a white Honda pulled up. I knew it before I saw her face. Ivy. She stepped out slowly, holding something. An envelope. I didn't get up. She stood at the bottom of the porch steps. "I just wanted to leave this," she said. "I'm not asking for anything." I said nothing. She hesitated. "I read the book," she added. "You didn't name us. You could have, but you didn't." Still, I said nothing. She placed the envelope on the step, nodded once, and left. I didn't open it. Didn't care to. I burned it in the fire pit later that night. Some things don't deserve oxygen. Graham sent one final email. No subject, no signature, just a sentence. "We broke something we couldn't fix." I archived it. Didn't reply. At the bookstore's storage unit, I opened a box labeled Christmas. Inside were 3 ornaments with Ivy's childhood handwriting. One said, "For Mom, you're my favorite person in the world." I placed it on the shelf and walked away. Some memories you preserve, not because they still matter, but because they prove you mattered once, and that's enough. The maple tree was sold with the house. The new owner sent a photo last week. The leaves are still bright red, still standing, still rooted. I never got justice in the way some people define it. No one was jailed, no one publicly humiliated, but I walked away with something they never expected me to keep. My name, my voice, and everything they thought I'd be too fragile to protect. The final chapter of the book ends with a note to the reader. It says, "If you ever feel invisible, start writing. Quiet people make the best witnesses, and the most dangerous."
That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.